All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in again. I'm going to now kind of give you guys a report here, an update of the last 6 to 12 hours here out of Ukraine as to what's been going on the ground here as the Russians continue to invade the country, continue to um, advance on Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. I'll start with kind of going over some of the main bullet points for tonight. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky addressed U.S. Congress this morning. That was at 9 a.m. We watched that live here on the show, and he gave a pretty stark speech and showed some pretty devastating footage along with that to the U.S. Congress of some of the collateral damage, some of the civilian casualties, and footage of the wounded and footage of just kind of the destruction that's occurring in their country. And um, he was calling on the U.S. Congress to quote do more, to try to do what they can. Hours later, of course, we saw President Biden give that press briefing where they vowed, they've now vowed to supply Ukraine with more aid. Um, we'll be speaking a lot more to that later on the open mic discussion as to the specifics of what they're sending over. We have lists of everything that they're looking to send over. They're sending over drones, rifles, ammunition, all sorts of gear they're sending over to the Ukrainians. I think it was like 5,000 rifles, if I'm not mistaken. There was a couple thousand pistols in there. Specifically, Zelensky continues to push for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Of course, they've been asking for that for some time, which most U.S. lawmakers and the Biden administration do not back. President Biden, meanwhile, approved $800 million in security assistance to Ukraine and vowed to send more weapons, of course, those rifles that I was just mentioning there, along with some drones. We've been talking about this. There's been a lot of talk of these so-called switchblade drones, which are kind of self-destructing hunt and kill drones. Um, there's a few other types of weaponry in there in that package that they'll be sending. Again, we'll be going into more of those specifics on the open mic discussion later this evening. He also called on Russian President Vladimir Putin a war criminal. Again, we've been hearing those words being tossed around a lot today. Earlier this morning, we saw the international an international tribunal kind of trial. There's an investigation now being launched into these war crimes that are happening in Ukraine. And so Putin did come out earlier and publicly referred to Putin now for the first time as a war criminal. I believe the Kremlin put out a public response a short time after, basically saying that was blasphemy, and that it was an unforgivable. If I'm not mistaken, the language that was used was an unforgivable piece of rhetoric. So definitely an interesting move from the U.S. I mean, it is quite true. There has been war crimes. In fact, earlier today we were covering a story that was breaking out of Ukraine. There was a bread line that was attacked by a group of Russian forces. I believe it resulted in 10 casualties at a bread line there in Ukraine. There was some pretty stark footage that came along with that. So again, here going back to the main headlines, a theater sheltering civilians was bombed in besieged city of Mariupol. Ukrainian officials say Russia denies this airstrike. Mariupol City Council shared images of a smoldering building saying hundreds of residents had taken refuge inside. The number of casualties is not yet known. Elsewhere in southern Ukraine, Melitopol, Mayor Ivan Fedorov, captured by Russian troops last week, has been freed now. We also saw there were some members of the Bucha City Council, that's northwest of Kiev, that were captured and have now been released as well. See here. A top Ukrainian negotiator says Ukraine and Russia might be moving closer to a possible ceasefire. Some Russian officials have also hinted that the two sides may be closer to a deal, but Putin has not yet signaled a readiness to pull back his forces. Of course, we've seen a continuation, especially today. Earlier today, we were watching kind of an advance on Kiev and a simultaneous a counter offensive by the Ukrainian defensive forces on the ground. As those Russians were trying to push in the city this morning, we heard a lot of gunfire earlier. In fact, if you go and you watch our morning report towards the end, it basically got interrupted and derailed by the amount of artillery and gunfire and explosions that we were hearing in the background there in Kiev this morning. Okay, so the United Nations, a top court in the in the Hague, has ordered Russia to halt its military operation in Ukraine. The International Court of Justice said evidence did not support the Kremlin's justification for the attack. Its rulings are binding, but countries have ignored them in the past. Russia is now facing again a debt payment deadline that could mean a historic sovereign default for the country. Again, their markets now have also been closed, I believe, for over 2 weeks, I think now, if I'm not mistaken, on those dates there. The country needs to pay 117 million in interest payments on two bonds that are denominated in dollars, but Russia has lost access to much of its foreign reserves. Lviv continues to take in displaced Ukrainians from the region, but space and resources are now strained. Again, we've seen an increase of shellings and bombings now in Lviv as well, as a lot of Ukrainian forces look to fall back to the regions around Lviv in the Lviv Oblast there, the Lviv region, and look to set up further defenses as kind of a fallback position. Fallback positions, in case. God forbid, Kiev eventually falls. If it does, Lviv will be again. It will be the capital, the temporary capital, so to speak. At that point, the majority of Ukrainian forces will fall back to that point. The majority of Ukrainian citizens that are on the ground will fall back to that area. Those that are fleeing, of course, the refugees. I mean, a lot of them are. There's a lot of people that are staying in Ukraine. Of course, we're talking millions of people here. Not everybody is leaving. There's people that have left and are looking to possibly even return. We've heard reports of that. As a lot of people they're stranded. They don't have anywhere else to go, and so again, it's an ongoing humanitarian crisis that's unfolding there in Ukraine. A Russian-owned super yacht named Ragnar is stuck in Norway because no one will sell it fuel. We've seen a couple instances of this, actually. This was a headline from earlier this afternoon. Seen a couple instances on this of Russian companies and some boats, Russian vessels, being denied port access in some places due to these new sanctions, these new embargoes that are going in place against Russia. So switching over here, we're going to go through our live UA map, and I'm going to go through all 12 hours, kind of go through the last 12 hours here of updates. Starting with our most recent. Actually, should I start? I'll get your guys' opinion on this. I've recently, I start with the most recent and I go back in time. Should I do the direct opposite? Should I scroll up to around 12 hours and then go kind of forwards from there? What do you guys think? Sound off in chat. Oldest first, somebody said. I saw somebody say oldest first. D-True just gives me a yes. Oldest first? I should be doing older to newer? Right on, guys. Okay. All right. We'll go up to 12 hours. Scroll up to 12 hours and then we'll go down from there. Thank you guys for that input. It was very enlightening. Oof. not wanting me. It's not wanting to show me things here. Okay. Something got messed up here. Let me refresh. Something got broken. Something got very broken. Okay, 7 hours, 8 hours. Yeah, I don't know why I just kind of got in the habit of just reading them from the latest to the oldest for you guys, but whatever. We'll start here at 11 hours ago. 11 hours ago, Ukrainian President Kiev faces Russian missiles and airstrikes every day. Of course, we saw that this morning, very heavily in Kiev. There was a lot of fighting this morning, and it almost sounded at some points like it was getting closer to the cameras over the course of an hour or two. We heard escalating gunfire, both small arms fire, large caliber fire as well. We heard what sounded like artillery fire, possibly outgoing. We also heard a few fairly large explosions as well this morning in Kiev. Okay. 11 hours ago, President Zelensky, I need to protect our skies. Again, calling on that, calling on, U.S. and NATO for that no-fly zone. CNN reported this morning that the U.S. will provide Soviet-era air defense systems to Ukraine in the coming days. President Biden is set to announce a $1 billion military aid package. Of course, they announced that. I was just speaking about that a few moments ago. "11 hours ago, Ukraine's president, of course, Vladimir Zelensky said, oh, okay, and I totally forgot to turn my auto update off there, so it pulled that away. Let me get that post back up so I can read that for you guys. Okay. Again, 11 hours ago, President Zelensky of Ukraine said he is grateful to the President of the United States for his personal involvement and his commitment to democracy. However, now in the darkest time for our country, I call on you to do more. Of course, that was given during that address. Again, in that address, he said peace is more important than income. Per Ukraine, Zelensky asking all U.S. ports to be closed to all Russian goods. 11 hours ago, Ukraine calls for alliance of countries to stop conflicts outside of NATO. President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky's proposal would aim for nations to provide immediate weapons assistance to countries under attack. 11 hours ago, EU Commissioner for Energy says the electricity grids of Ukraine and Moldova have been successfully synchronized with the continental European grid. If those of you that watched our last panel discussion, you will know the significance of this post here. We will be speaking to this in our panel discussion this evening. This is a pretty important step here. This operation, of course, in our last panel discussion, we spoke about how Ukraine has made an effort to become independent from Russia's power grid, and eventually got to a point where they split from Russia's power grid in the majority of the areas of Ukraine. Again, we'll talk more about this later tonight, but again, I'll read that out. The EU Commissioner for Energy says the electricity grids of Ukraine and Moldova have been successfully synchronized with the continental European grid. This will help Ukraine to keep their electricity system stable and lights on. It is a historic milestone for our relationship in this area. Ukraine is now part of Europe. 11 hours ago, President Zelensky says, we are now fighting for the values of Europe and the world. That's why today the American people are helping not just Ukraine, but Europe and the world to keep the planet alive, to keep justice in history. 11 hours ago, the Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation had a phone call with the National Security Advisor of the United States, Anthony Sullivan. I don't have the details of that conversation earlier, but it is notable that they did have that exchange of dialogue earlier today. 11 hours ago, Putin, in a new statement, says that Russia is not going to occupy Ukraine. Also states that everything is going according to plan. A very interesting statement by Putin there. 11 hours ago, President Zelensky says Ukraine has become a member of the EU Energy Union. The unification of Ukraine's and the European Union energy systems has been completed, again referring to the power grids being connected there, which happened today, mind you. Now, Ukraine's electricity flows in the European Union and vice versa. Grateful to European Union members personally. He mentions a few names there, and everyone, thanks to whom, now have a single energy system. Again, we spoke about that in our last panel discussion. It just so happens that the next day, the power grids were connected. Interesting coincidence there, but we will learn more about that situation tonight in our open panel discussion, which will be taking place right after we're done giving this report here. 11 hours ago, as a result of shelling in the Sloboditsky district of Kharkiv, a big warehouse has caught fire. There is a video of that here. Again, that happened in and around the heavily shelled region of Kharkiv. That video is not embedding right into Live UA Map to continue the flow of news here. I'm going to skip showing you that. I might show it to you guys later during the open panel discussions, though. 11 hours ago here, 3 civilian vehicles caught fire as a result of Russian shelling targeting Brovary. You can see that image here of those civilian cars that have been destroyed. 10 hours ago, Russian equipment is being prepared for railway movement in Abkhazia. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Again, you can see a picture here of that. This looks like a column here of armored personnel carriers. I believe that's what those are there. 10 hours ago, in Ukraine, another Russian attack helicopter was destroyed by Ukrainian air defenses, this time a Ka-52 with tail number of RF-13411. You can see some images there of that Russian attack helicopter there. 10 hours ago, Foreign Affairs Chair Greg Meeks told the S-300 missiles defense systems that Zelensky stressed in his speech to Congress are already there, with more on the way. This was clearly a previously classified operation to have them nearby in Ukraine without getting attention. Again, we've seen a few different missile defense systems moved and shuffled around in NATO member states, as well as in Ukraine as well. There definitely has been a fortification of those air defense systems. 10 hours ago, U.S. launches a task force to raise the costs for Russian oligarchs. Effort includes Australia, Canada, the EU Commission, Germany, Italy, France, Japan, and Britain. There's a picture of the document there disclosing that information. I believe that's the press release there. 10 hours ago, United Kingdom Defense Secretary Ben Wallace tells BBC that Britain is supplying Starstreak anti-aircraft missiles to Ukraine. Last week he told MPs examining the possibility, now says we are supplying them. They will go into theater. Also says the United Kingdom has now sent 4,000 anti-tank weapons, and we've seen firsthand proof of them being put to good use. 10 hours ago, asked about Poland's call on Wednesday to send NATO forces into Ukraine on a peacekeeping mission, the NATO military officials suggested such a plan would be untenable, saying it would likely be more like peace enforcement in the current context and would be war with Russia. Essentially, at that point, that is World War III. There is no denying that. Once NATO gets involved, that would be a major and very unfortunate escalation of events. 9 hours ago, Russian MLRS Grad systems, again, those are the multiple rocket-launched artillery systems there, targeted column of vehicles evacuating from Mariupol to Zaporizhia. There are casualties. General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine made that press release earlier today. Again, that was 9 hours ago. 9 hours ago, Polish defense minister, during the first session of NATO defense ministers, we analyzed the situation in Ukraine. which was attacked by Russia. NATO does not agree to this situation. The alliance speaks with one voice when it comes to supporting Ukraine. We saw Jens Stoltenberg actually earlier today give an address as well. It was a very busy day in the geopolitical spectrum when it comes to press statements and releases. Let me get my chat up here. All right. Okay, so 9 hours ago, footage has emerged of the aftermath of Ukraine indirect fire against Kherson Airport. Approximately 14 supply trucks were destroyed. 8 have been damaged. Again, here's a image of that from Kherson. See if I can get the video up actually for that. Here we go. Here's the video from that footage of that destroyed convoy there in Kherson. You can see the Z markings of those Russian vehicles there. 9 hours ago, the World Health Organization said Wednesday that healthcare facilities and personnel were being attacked at an unprecedented rate in the conflict in Ukraine. A Russian airstrike destroyed a children's hospital in Mariupol on March 9th. Of course, this isn't the first update we've seen from the World Health Organization. I believe this is about the third or fourth we've now seen over the past few days as more hospitals have been struck, more clinics have been struck, and there's been an overall escalation in force used against medical facilities and personnel by these Russian forces. Nine hours ago, 5 wounded as a result of shelling on an evacuation convoy in the Zaporizhia region. Again, that's near that nuclear power plant. It's in the same kind of oblast, in the same region there. And there are a lot of evacuations happening, moving westbound from Mariupol, which is over in this direction here. Moving westbound as they're trying to get people onto the western bank, across the Dnieper River here, onto the western bank to safety. There's been a lot of reports of Russians opening fire on a lot of both the evacuation corridors going out and the humanitarian supply corridors going in. Here we go. 9 hours ago, NATO Secretary General announces reset for the collective defense. Today, we tasked our military commanders to develop options across all domains: land, air, sea, ocean, cyber, and space. On land, our new posture should include more forces in the eastern part of the alliance, again, as they look to bolster their forces in Europe. On the countries bordering Russia. 9 hours ago, NATO Chief Stoltenberg details some of the ways the alliance is adjusting to what he calls the new normal, air quotes, with major adjustments to the military posture. He expects more forces in the eastern part of the alliance at higher readiness, more pre-positioned equipment, etc. Chief Stoltenberg also went on to say, "We don't see any sign on the ground that Russia is ready to make peace with Ukraine." On Poland's proposal for a peacekeeping mission, NATO Secretary General said, "What we need is peace in Ukraine. We support all efforts to find a negotiated solution. We have no plans of deploying NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine at this time." 9 hours ago, President Putin must stop this war immediately, said Stoltenberg, withdraw his forces now and engage in diplomacy in good faith. 8 hours ago, Minister of the Foreign Affairs of Ukraine said the UN International Court of Justice ordered the Russian Federation to immediately stop the military operation in Ukraine. Again, we saw that International Court trial meeting there this morning on the stream, and this is the results that came of that meeting there. Again, they have ordered the Russian Federation to immediately stop the military operation in Ukraine. Again, they are looking to charge both Putin as well as some other higher-ranking officials in the country then with, effectively war crimes for some of the incidents that have happened now since the war has begun. 8 hours ago, 3 killed, 5 wounded as a result of a fire after shelling at a market near Heriov Pratsy Metro in Kharkiv. Kharkiv has been hit very hard. You can see a picture here of that fire and that blaze being put out by some firefighters on the ground there in Ukraine, in Kharkiv. 8 hours ago, in Mariupol, theater of drama was destroyed in a Russian airstrike. Again, that was at the. I believe that's the theater that we were speaking of earlier. Again, we don't have concrete confirmations of casualties in that event, but I will be bringing you the. We'll probably have that information for you in that open panel discussion after this report. 8 hours ago, Putin's hopes for a quick victory, this blitzkrieg taking control over Kiev within days, has absolutely failed, per NATO's Stoltenberg. But we should not underestimate Russia's capabilities when it comes to continuing the war, and also to continue to attack, including cities. 8 hours ago, at 8:03 Minsk time, several fuel trucks with the V markings and camouflage nets are moving along the R31 highways towards the Kalakivichi Gomel region. I believe that is okay. So that is actually that's in Belarus. Yeah. So that's in Belarus, heading down into Ukraine as they're looking to bring fuel down into theater. All right, so 8 hours ago, the Russian Ministry of Defense again accusing Secretary of Service of Ukraine and Western countries in preparation of an attack with chemical substances, claims that Russian units in Ukraine are not in possession of chemical weapons. So again, that is the Russian Ministry of Defense accusing the Security Service of Ukraine and Western countries, including the U.S. and Europe, that they are in preparation of, and I quote, an attack with chemical substances. And they claim that themselves, the Russian units in Ukraine, are not in possession of any chemical weapons at this time. Again, we have seen evidence that that is not true, that the Russians do actually have some possible chemical agents in the country on the ground at this time. However, we don't know exactly what they're going to be using those for. If it's for a chemical attack or some other purpose, we do not know. 8 hours ago, advisor to the office of the president of Ukraine briefly. FT published a draft which represents the requesting position of the Russian side, nothing more. Ukraine side has its own positions. The only thing we confirm at this stage is a ceasefire, withdrawal of Russian troops, and security guarantees from a number of countries. 7 hours ago, the Melitopol mayor, Ivan Fedorov, has been released from Russian captivity. I brought you that update a short time ago. 7 hours ago, the President of the United States praises the Ukrainian president for a speech to Congress, for the speech he did earlier. He speaks for a people who have shown remarkable courage and strength in the face of brutal aggression. Again, Biden went on to say, it's god awful what Putin is doing in Ukraine. Putin is inflicting appalling devastation in Ukraine, bombing apartment buildings, maternity wards, hospitals. These are atrocities. They are an outrage to the world. 7 hours ago, U.S. aid has clearly helped Ukraine inflict dramatic losses on Russian forces. Per the President of the United States says the U.S. authorized $1 billion to help Kiev just this week, including 800 anti-aircraft systems and help with acquiring longer-range anti-systems. 7 hours ago, U.S. Aid to Ukraine includes drones, per the President of the United States, calling it part of the U.S. commitment to help Kiev with our most cutting-edge systems, air quotes, and more will be coming, he says, again referring to those Switchblade drones, amongst others. 7 hours ago, this could be a long and difficult battle, but the American people will be steadfast in our support of the people of Ukraine in the face of Putin's immoral, unethical attacks on civilian populations, per, of course, President Biden. 7 hours ago, together with our allies and partners, we will keep up the pressure on Putin's crumbling economy, isolating him per again the President of the United States, Joseph Biden. That's our goal. Make Putin pay the price while strengthening the hand of the Ukrainians on the battlefield and at the negotiating table. 7 hours ago, this is a struggle that pits the appetite of an autocrat against the humankind's desire to be free. Let there be no doubt, no uncertainty, no question. America stands with the forces of freedom. Again, that is from the American president as he gave that press address earlier this afternoon. We watched that here on the live stream earlier this evening. 7 hours ago, Russian shelling targeted civilian houses in the Poldiski district of Kiev. A low pressure natural gas pipeline was damaged. Civil defense units are on the site at this time. Here's a picture here of that fire there. Again, there was a gas pipeline that was destroyed in that area. 7 hours ago. May God protect the young Ukrainians out there defending their country. Again, this is from President Biden of the United States. Before signing the legislation authorizing $800 million in aid for Ukraine. Of course, we spoke to that earlier. 7 hours ago, a Russian airstrike targeting Neptune swimming pool in Mariupol. Again, more targets, more civilian targets, more residential targets are being stricken. 7 hours ago, the new aid to Ukraine includes 100 drones, 100 tactical unmanned aerial systems on the White House fact sheet. And here is that fact sheet here from 7 hours ago. The White House on the new $800 million assistance package. I can bring that up here and I can get you guys those official numbers here. 800 Stinger anti-aircraft systems, 2,000 of our beautiful St. Javelin anti-tank guided munitions, 1,000 light anti-armor weapons and 6,000 AT-4 anti-armor systems, 100 tactical unmanned aerial systems, 100 grenade launchers, 5,000 rifles, 1,000 pistols, 400 machine guns, 400 shotguns, over 200 million rounds. I find it funny, the 400 shotguns one. Biden really likes his shotguns. Over 20 million rounds of small arms ammunition and grenade launcher and mortar rounds. 25,000 sets of body armor, and 25,000 helmets. In addition to the weapons listed above, previous United States assistance committed to Ukraine includes already sent 600 Stinger anti-aircraft systems, approximately 2,600 of St. Javelin on the ground in Ukraine, 5 Mi-17 helicopters, if I'm not mistaken. I believe those are Russian make, if I'm not mistaken. 3 patrol boats, 4 counter-artillery and counter-unmanned aerial system tracking radars, 4 counter-mortar radar systems, 200 grenade launchers, 200 shotguns, 200 machine guns, nearly 400 million rounds of small arms ammunition, and over 1 million grenade, mortar, and artillery rounds. 70 high mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicles, HMMWVs, and other vehicles, secured communications, electronic warfare detection systems, body armor, helmets, and other tactical gear. Military medical equipment to support treatment and combat evacuation, explosive ordnance disposal and demining equipment, and satellite imagery and analysis capability. Again, they also are most likely feeding them direct intel and direct feeds from those Forte drones and from the other reconnaissance drones that they do have in the battle space. I would not put that outside of the realm of possibility. Again, that is the list of the aid that is heading into Ukraine now from the U.S. and a list of the aid that we've already sent in. 6 hours ago, the Russian army shelling targeted Velkia and Persevika in the Sumy region. You can see a picture there of a young and healthy Ukrainian young man there holding what looks to be a piece of a rocket or shell in his hands. And again, you can see possibly in the background maybe some damage. Kind of hard to tell there. 6 hours ago, U.S. Secretary of Defense, we are urgently seeking to provide the security assistance that Biden announced today for Ukraine. I guarantee we're going to see aircraft signs of this material moving into the region probably over the next 24 hours. We'll be keeping a track. Our flight guys will be keeping a close eye on the airspace for that incoming military assistance and aid coming into Ukraine. 6 hours ago, rescuers extracted 5 bodies, among them 3 children, from the rubble of the destroyed dormitory of the ZAZ district in Cherniv. Again, very unfortunate. We're seeing a lot of civilian casualties, a lot of collateral damage in and around Ukraine this past week. It's very unfortunate to hear of civilian casualties, especially kids getting involved in this war. And again, I fear that we're only going to see more of that as time goes on here, as Russia gets more desperate and looks to really, bombard some of these cities and some of these towns into submission in Ukraine. Again, 6 hours ago departed after U.S. banned the import of oil from Russia over its country's invasion of Ukraine. Singapore-based SLAVA ships Liberian flag tanker Iridescent transited Bosphorus carrying Russian crude en route for Novorossiysk and to the United States, likely Delaware. Again, they're turning away ships now because of these Russian sanctions. 6 hours ago, U.S. State Department says Russia must immediately stop the campaign of death and destruction in Ukraine. Again, that is one of many calls coming from many countries over the past few days, calling for Russia to cease the activities of its air quotes special military operation, as they call it, in Ukraine. 5 hours ago, the Nizhyn critical stocks of flour and limits on sale of products, says Mayor Kodola. In Nizhyn, again, that's this village here, not too far. I believe it is in Cherniv Oblast, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. 5 hours ago, Biden says Putin is a war criminal. Again, that was a fresh report, some fresh words there out of Biden's mouth that he hasn't used before. He's now officially publicly labeled Putin as a war criminal. Very dangerous territory that we're getting into, and I feel like it's very unfortunate that we are getting into this realm, getting into this territory here. Honestly, this is very thin ice we're walking on here, and I believe the margin of error, for a miscalculation, is shrinking. I believe the risk. Sorry, let me rephrase here. The risk of a miscalculation occurring is growing, I believe, by the hour at this time. 5 hours ago, since the start of its invasion of Ukraine, 21 days ago, Russia has launched 980 missiles, per a senior U.S. defense official. 5 hours ago, U.S. cannot corroborate reports of Slovakia willing to provide Ukraine with such air defense systems, per a senior U.S. Defense official, but the Secretary of Defense will be meeting with Slovakian officials this Thursday. 5 hours ago, U.S. assesses that Russian military is trying to cut off Ukrainian forces in the Donbass to prevent Ukraine from helping to defend the capital of Kiev, says a senior U.S. defense official. Again, that was 5 hours ago. And again, 5 hours ago, U.S. Is seeing indications that Russia is now discussing deliberating the need to move in supplies from outside the combat theater in Ukraine. That would include manpower, per a senior U.S. defense official. Every day they are experiencing losses, per that same official source. Again, we are seeing them now shifting forces from some of the more eastern regions of Russia, shifting around forces in Belarus, shifting forces possibly in Transnistria, bringing people in from Syria, from the Middle East, from many different sources. They're bringing in forces now to the ground. Possibly China is getting involved here. We're going to have to wait and see how things pan out. We do know that China is looking to send aid. We don't know if it's in the form of maybe some troops. We know there are some other private military contractors that are also looking to get involved from the Asian Pacific theater on the ground in Ukraine. So we're gonna have to keep an eye on that situation as the days and weeks go on here, as this war continues to unfold. 5 hours hours ago, Mariupol City Council says 11,000 people have left the city today for Zaporizhia. You can see some images here on the screen of those buses departing with those citizens evacuating the city. 5 hours ago, U.S. assesses about 75% of Russia's total military force is being applied to the war in Ukraine, per a senior U.S. defense official. Again, they say so that 75% of Russia's total military force. I don't believe that it's their direct forces that they have on the ground in Russia. I believe we're seeing 75% of their amassed force, that original 200,000 that they had massed on the borders. I believe that that's what we're seeing here. 75% of that, if anything. I believe we definitely should not be jumping to conclusions, and we shouldn't be underestimating the Russian military at this time. I believe that could be a very dangerous mistake. And the Ukrainians have been lucky enough so far. They've been keeping the Russians at bay. They've been doing an excellent job at slowing down this Russian advance. And so I believe it would be wise for them to not to jump to any assumptions, for any of us to jump to any assumptions, and to stay as many steps ahead of the Russians as we possibly can at this time. Okay, so continuing on here. 5 hours ago, so this is a statement from the U.S. defense officials. They said, "We are actively sharing information and intelligence with the Ukrainians that we believe can be helpful to them in their fight every day." And by helpful, I mean helpful, says that U.S. Defense official. Again, I believe they're not just providing them satellite imagery and stuff like that, and baseline intel, but they're also providing them reconnaissance data, I believe, directly from some of these drones that we have been monitoring, things like that CL-60, things like the Forte drones, the RC-135, Rivet Joints. I guarantee they're feeding them some of that reconnaissance data as well. Some of those systems have that ground scanning radar that can pick up columns of tanks and artillery batteries and things like that. And so that's very useful data for those Ukrainian defenders. 5 hours ago, the world's children were written in Russian in large white letters in front of and behind the theater that was destroyed in Mariupol today. These were added around March 12th. Video posted on March 10th shows the theater packed with sheltering families. Again, so that theater that was targeted earlier, again, had big letters that said children on either side of the theater, so that they would not be targeted by Russian bombers. Again, the Russians did end up striking that target earlier. We'll have more info on casualties, I believe, later this evening for that. 4 hours ago, new imagery of the attack on Russian military helicopters at the Kirsan airport. Again, you can see pictures of that here on screen. 4 hours ago, head of the security policy at Meta, earlier today, our teams identified and removed a deepfake video claiming to show President Zelensky issuing a statement he never did. It appeared on a reportedly compromised website and then started showing across the internet. How funny. It's interesting that just the other night, literally just the other night, it might have been in our open panel discussion, I mentioned how I was surprised that we hadn't seen a President Zelensky deepfake. And what do we see now? A President Zelensky deepfake, just a few short moments later. Again, we have to be very careful. These deepfake videos, this is the circumstances in which they are going to be used going forward into the future, is in war. Okay, is to sow disinformation in a propaganda campaign like what we're seeing now. And so this does not surprise me at all. In fact, I called it and I saw it coming right from the get-go. In fact, I would be very interested to see this deepfake video and to see the quality in which it was produced. If somebody can get me some details and maybe get that deepfake video over to me, I would love to see it. and I would love to have it on the show here so we could just rip it to pieces and take a look at it and maybe try to debunk it on our own. Again, 4 hours ago here, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov on Wednesday said that U.S. President Joe Biden's characterization of the Russian leader as a war criminal was unacceptable and unforgivable rhetoric. Again, I mentioned that earlier. That came directly from the Kremlin. They're calling those Biden, called Putin a war criminal. The Kremlin is calling that unacceptable and unforgivable rhetoric to call Putin a war criminal at this time. Again, it is kind of a big deal, I think, that they're now using that public terminology there. 4 hours ago, explosions reported in a number of cities in Belarus. Residents of Baranivchi and a few other locations there reported sounds similar to explosions. Again, those turned out to be what we believe were training exercises that caused those explosion sounds in all of those different cities. We're still waiting to get more details on this. It's very interesting, a very speculative situation that's going on there in Belarus. A lot of the reports coming out are speculative at this time. I don't really have too much in the way of concrete information. However, I believe a lot of my intel analysts over there in the Discord do, and a lot of them are just waiting to get into that open mic discussion after this report, and we'll be getting you guys plenty of information on that situation. 4 hours ago, missile strike reported at Sarnie town in Rivny region. Again, that is northwest, I believe, of... it's actually to the west of Kiev here. Kind of to the north of Rivny is where that blast occurred earlier. 2 hours ago, Melitopol Mayor Fedorov was exchanged for 9 captured Russian conscripts. So there was kind of a trade-off there, trading captives for captives there. That mayor has now been released in Melitopol. So this does look like that is all of the updates I have for you guys off of Live UA Map at this time and out of our other sources. Yeah, of course, later in the evening, the Live UA Map tends to have some issues. And then, a few hours later, we usually end up getting kind of a burst of updates that come through. All right, guys. So again, thank you for tuning in for this short burst of updates here. It was about 15 minutes of updates there. I'm going to, right after this, we will be bringing you guys our open panel mic discussions, our open mic panel discussions. Don't really have a concrete name for that picked yet. For you guys, it'll be about a 10 to 15 minute break in between this report and then those discussions going live, so stand by for that. If you're following along on YouTube, if you're watching this report in its video form after it's been uploaded, you can find all of the links to everything down in the description below this video or the live stream. If you haven't already, hit that like button. If you'd like to support the channel and get notifications of future uploads or future streams, hit the subscribe button. Again, it's the best way to support the channel. If you're following along on Twitch, make sure to hit that follow button. Again, if you're watching this as an uploaded video later, you probably won't be on Twitch, but if you're watching now on Twitch on the live stream, thank you guys so much for tuning in over there. If you would like to join in on the discussion with our community, if you would like to contribute reports, contribute intel, provide anything that you think you want to send something to us, best place to do that is over on our Discord server. You can find a link to that in the description below the live streams, both on YouTube and on Twitch, and below the video if you're watching this as the uploaded version afterwards. The link to that is discord.gg/NEMICO. That's discord.gg/NEMICO. Everybody is welcome to join over there. We implore everybody to please read the rules thoroughly before you decide to contribute to any of the many channels that we have going over there. We have dedicated channels now set up for everything from radio communications interception, running translations, monitoring flight radar, monitoring naval movements, and tracking naval hardware, reporting on different topics, We have a wide variety of different channels for different topics and discussions. Our community is now up to around 17,000 members over there on the Discord server, so we'd love to have you guys come and join the amazing community. We've been able to do some amazing things over there on the server, and so we'd love to have you guys come and be a part of that. So again, this was a report for March 16th, 2022. It's our nightly report here out of Ukraine. Again, I will be uploading this video right after it is done to our YouTube channel. So if anybody misses this report, you can catch them now. We will be uploading them every time we do a report. I'll be recording it and uploading it to the YouTube channel. Again, thank you to everybody that is tuning in, and stand by for those open panel mic discussions. Until next time.